I was talking to a director the other day who sits on a parent company board, and he was lamenting the fact that something had happened in one of the wholly owned subsidiaries that the parent board didn't find out until they thought it was too late. Which raises a really interesting question about what your subsidiary governance framework is in corporate groups of companies. And in my experience, it's really important to think about this before any issues arise. Be proactive as much as possible. And there's a couple of key things to think about here. First of all, what's your overall approach to wholly owned subsidiaries in the corporate group? What's the degree of integration and control you want them to have? And there's a spectrum of possibilities in this regard, but clarity on where you sit on that spectrum is really important. Once you've got that, it's really good to have a subsidiary governance policy in place. And that should address some key things. Firstly, what's the role and responsibilities of the parent, the subsidiary, the directors on each, and the executives? Who should sit on these subsidiary company boards? The parent company will usually have, obviously, that right of appointment, but are they appointing some parent directors and some different directors? Are they to be independent directors? Are they to be executive directors? Then thinking about the performance expectations of the wholly owned subsidiary. Are they to be part of the overall corporate strategy, which most likely they are? And if so, what's their role in that strategy? What's the risk appetite within which they need to operate? And then how does the subsidiary report to the parent on its performance? That might be, for example, quarterly reporting on financial and operational performance. Or there might be also a criteria which guide reporting outside of that usual cycle, and typically that's if certain risk parameters or performance parameters are met. It's also useful to think about what is it that we're going to use as communication tools generally, and what is the board committee structure? So are we going to have board committees that operate across the whole group, or are there separate board committees for parents and subsidiaries? And then other factors such as service level agreements. How do we keep basically the subsidiaries whole from a corporate service perspective? Some other considerations with subsidiary companies is some of the legal issues. So when we think about it, there's actually separate legal entities. Wholly owned subsidiaries, separate legal entities in their own right. The directors appointed to them, whether they're executives or whether they're independents, have duties to that particular subsidiary. How do we structure that subsidiary to allow it to be able to take into account the parent company's interests as well? And that's a really important legal issue to think about. And then how generally do we think about some other aspects such as shadow directorships and the like? So thinking proactively about subsidiary company governance is always better than waiting for a problem to happen.